All right. Rachael Real from Rachael Real Real Estate in Chicago and I are here with, are we calling you the father of real estate? What are we calling you, Saul?
Well, I'm not that old.
That's right. It was invented. When did real estate start? Like
Because
8?
I've been around as long as dirt.
Yeah. We'll call you the father of real estate internet listings. How about that?
That's closer to the truth.
All right. Saul Klein. He's currently in California, but today we're going to fight about the trademark word realtor. And let me give you a little backstory. So, as most of you know, Monica Weekly and I's podcast was called Realtor Fight Club. And we got in a little bit of trouble from the NAR, which didn't surprise the brokers, but it kind of surprised us because we thought we were realtors. So, Saul, why am I not allowed to use the word realtor? Please enlighten me.
Well, yeah. And again, I'm not an attorney, but I've played around with this for many years because I've seen it violated many, many times.
Oh, sure.
And so when it was created, it's really kind of a nonsense word. If you think about it, it's kind of like Zillow. It's a made up word.
Or Kleenex.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a made up word, but then a lot of effort's been put into over many years into branding it right up through the federal laws around trademarks and marks and symbols, which the federal government lays out. And if you want to qualify for those, and you can, and there are benefits, then to maintain those, there are certain rules and regulations you have to follow. And that's what NAR did. They created this term many years ago, realtor. They've jumped through all the hoops. They've spent a lot of money branding it. We all, as members, can use it, provided we all use it the way that the rules laid out. As an example, if I was actively pursuing and selling real estate in San Diego today, I might want to be your San Diego realtor. But so would 15,000 other people like to be your San Diego realtor. And what would be fair that just because I got it first or what? So there are these rules. I can't be. That's one of the rules. You can't be a geography in your name and a realtor. So there are these rules, and we might not necessarily like them. Typically, we don't like them if we learn about them after the fact. If we learn about them beforehand, it's not usually a problem.
Well, but let me back up. And Rachel, I don't know if you have the same question, but like the purpose of branding the word was for the benefit of the members of the association who are called realtors, correct?
Well, I'm probably, but again, unless you do those things that allow you to maintain it, it doesn't do anybody any good.
But so you just have to be a member.
You have to be a member, and then you can utilize that, and only a member can use it. Now, whether or not people want to use it or don't like to use it or think it's clean, that's a whole nother thing. They have the option, right? And that's one of the things that you get when you join NAR, and it's, the largest trade. Agree with it or not, and I don't agree with it all the time. Agree with it or not, that's it. Now, these rules are not specific to the National Association of Realtors. If you look at anybody that has a brand, there are certain requirements that they have to chase people down who are using it incorrectly, and if they don't, they lose the brand. So
true. I guess like I'm sorry, Rachel, did you want to jump in here?
No, I'm tuning in very, very diligently here, okay. waiting till I can strike.
I guess I think like I see the point. I understand. So it's like if the trademark or the word becomes kind of like bastardized or whatever, then it loses whatever was created for. So my understanding, after like kind of doing some research and asking some questions, was it was meant to represent, and I want everybody to know, like, this is just opinions of us. Like we're just talking. We're not like representing anything here. We're just talking. So I hope we don't get in trouble, but also most of it we don't really care either. Okay, so my understanding was the purpose of the trademark term was to represent the members of the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and to distinguish that those members followed a code of ethics. Not like the other real estate agents that were non-members. Does that seem right?
I don't think so. I think it was created for an organizational identity. And once you have an organizational identity, then you can start to get those benefits.
Well,
and give
wasn't
those,
that their identity though? That they were real estate agents that were held to like a higher ethical standard than non-member real
well,
estate.
yeah, part of that was, okay, we're going to create this organization,
Yeah,
this entity, and
okay.
we're going to have a code of ethics, and that's going to make us different. And we're going to call ourselves Realtor, but that's going to, and that is going to, we're going to protect it. So
Mhm.
not just any Joe Schmo can call himself Realtor. And okay,
Except
so
that we're required to now be a member, most of us.
well, again, that's a different conversation than the trademark conversation, in my mind, right? So
That is a different conversation.
so the
Right.
trademark and the way that the things work in the trademark conversation, in my mind, work very specifically in accordance with the law, in an equitable way. I can't be the best realtor in Kentucky, because somebody else wants to be the best. So they just, all these rules.
Right.
And anybody that gets a federal trademark has to comply with this behavior to protect their trademark.
Right.
And if the belief is that trademark benefits the organization and it benefits all the members, if we all can figure out how to use it in our best interest, and that's kind of the way it is. When I created the ePro course with John Riley and Mike Barnett, and then we taught it across the country. And part of what we taught back in the early days of technology in the internet was how to properly use the term realtor on the internet and in email. And we actually had a whole segment on it and part of that, as you can imagine, was we brought in all the NAR rules.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, here's the rules. Here's
manual, the 10-page manual of.
Yeah, and then we'd say, and we'd ask questions, is this proper usage? Is this proper usage?
Right.
And because in the age of the internet, you had brought up a whole new question.
Right.
Right.
You can say like Saul Klein, realtor.
Yeah.
You can't say Saul Klein, your San Diego realtor.
Right. Right. And then you write like a 10-page book. It gives you examples and it shows you how you can use it. And so, I'm a certified financial planner. I think I became a certified financial planner in 1989. So I'm a CFP. And by the way, I pay a lot more in dues to get for my CFP, which does a lot less for me.
Yeah.
Than my realtor dues. And
well, that's a barrier to entry issue. That's a whole.
Yeah, and that's not even. It's a whole different, right? But they charge this, and you can use this mark and the same kinds of things, and you can't use it incorrectly. And I got in an argument with them once. I was using it, but I wasn't using it incorrectly. I know how to use email, so I was using to sort my email. I was using CFP, which is a trademark term, CFP at saulklein.com. I wasn't CFP, I was just CFP, right? Because the way I have my mail set up, anything at saulklein.com comes to me. Right. So I keep track of my mail. So I set it up, and I got a note from them because when I put it on my renewal, I put that, and I actually had to change it. So anyway, I understand how these things work. And
well, I guess okay, so we're not going to, I think we can know that we're not going to change the trademark rules necessarily. I think for me, the biggest beef is, first of all, I feel like we are realtors if we are a member of the NAR, and it seems like we have no say in if we're members or not.
Well, no, see, I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for over 40 years.
Right.
And I think I have a say. And I like the idea that they protect the mark. Yeah. So that it's uniform use.
But they're protecting it from you.
No, they're protecting it so that it can stay in use. They're not protecting it. They're protecting it from people who would use it in a way that might cause the organization to lose it.
What would be an example of a way that someone would use it that would cause the organization to lose the word?
So if I used it, if I wasn't a realtor and I used it, or if I used it probably tied it to a geography, and NAR didn't enforce the rule around that might cause them to lose it. So I don't know what specifically would cause them to lose it. I know that every time there is a perceived violation, the attorneys in NAR, it's very high on their priority list because they don't want to lose it, right? Or they don't want to be the attorney that was the one that didn't follow up on the case. that cause
Yeah,
them to
although
leave.
like that also, I get that from their point of view, but if I'm thinking from,
Their point of view is remember, them is us.
right, that's true because we're members, even though we have no
Right.
say. I mean, even though we don't have a choice to be not a member.
I have a choice
You
where
do,
I live.
but we don't. I don't.
Right. I
it's
was just going to say
well,
you're in one of just a handful of states that doesn't require membership.
one in 4 states that must allow it, and then there's
Exactly.
some others that voluntarily do it. But you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
My bigger question is, you get into all these semantics about using the word and the appropriate use of the word in the behind the scenes talk between agents and brokerages and all that. From the public's perspective, NAR runs ads and talks about, choose a realtor, they're held to a higher standard of code of ethics, and they're held to higher standards and this and that. The public doesn't understand any of what we've set up until now. And nor does it matter to them. They just want to know that who they're choosing to work with is somebody that's held to a higher standard. So I almost look at it from the other end and say, if I'm a member of the public and I'm going to search out a realtor, and then I find out that after looking at these ads that everyone's a realtor, it's a diluted term.
Right.
And what is the benefit to the consumer to seek out a realtor when they come to find out that we all are, because we all have to be.
I don't know that we all have to be, but in your state you might.
Right.
But here's what I would say. If you don't like it, you can change it. You can make a difference. When I was selling real estate, when I was selling real estate in San Diego, I thought we needed to have a countywide lockbox. And so I got involved at my association of realtors. I became a director, got on committees, became a director, and we got a countywide. And I thought we should have a countywide MLS because I thought it was stupid to have like 6 MLSs in one county. And so I fought and worked for a regional multiple listing service in San Diego. And then when the internet came along, again, I'm a realtor. I'm selling real estate and I'm volunteering at my board of realtors. And then I say, you know what? I think that internet is really something we need to look at. We need to put our listings on the internet. And so I work to, my point is that I think that there is apparatus to participate. Now, like a lot of organizations, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes some work and some effort, but there is that opportunity, and so there, something like this, where would you go? Would you go to like the grievance committee or work on
you would go to
professional standards maybe?
Exactly.
Or run for director and bring it up as a motion on the floor I mean, there's like a lot of avenues.
Sure.
But doesn't mean it makes everybody happy. It's just, one more road to run down. But I'll tell you what, when I started running down those roads, it opened up all kinds of new doors for me. Because I met
I've been involved in our professional standards committee as right now I serve as vice chair, so I'll be chair next year. And I've gone through this, the last handful of years. So I've been on that committee for about 6 years. And it's very interesting. And I would encourage anybody who's been in the business for, what the requirements are in your state to get involved in that, because you learn something on every single hearing case that you sit on. You also, you look back on it and go, God, there's so many reasons why people why agents wouldn't pursue a code of ethics violation with another agent, which means a lot, because we're a self-policing industry. A lot of these things fall through the cracks, and a lot of these agents that definitely do not adhere to any code of ethics standards, whether it's real estate or just life in general, shouldn't be
usually
representing people for with their largest financial decision.
But again, that's like a barrier to entry rule, right? Like in our state, Ohio, they just started doing background checks in October of 19. So prior to that, you just like checked this box that said you're not like a criminal.
Right. That's what it is in Illinois still. Yeah.
I guess
they don't do background checks, they don't do anything. But even a background check wouldn't show up whether or not somebody was just a complete.
And the thing about the whole industry, if you're going to take apart, you really got to take apart the whole industry.
I mean, let's blow it up. I always say
you really got to look at brokerage. You got to look at the employment situation. You got to look at the contingent compensation structure. So there's like a lot of it. Most people come ill-equipped to participate in the industry. And then,
absolutely,
Rachel, when you get into where you are and you're sitting on the grievance committee or the professional standards committee, then you start to realize the great inconsistencies.
Oh, it's maddening,
right?
It's maddening. Yeah.
But you can see the inconsistencies as you're dealing with agents across all different production levels too, and not just production, but
you can even see inconsistencies in decisions.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Based on the facts of the case.
Right. We
So-
just got done sitting through an entire arbitration hearing, and once you come to your agreement and you decide what your findings are, it was determined that the panel of us was the second panel to hear the hearing, and the first panel found it completely the opposite way.
Yeah. So there's
And we all
these,
sat there and went, how did they come up with that explanation, or how did they come up with that resolution? And we
so
couldn't make heads or tails of it.
it's a difficult beast to try to put any rules around or control
It
or
is.
create benefits. And I believe that a lot of it has to do with the structure of it. You go this whole idea of raising the standard. I remember when I used to teach real estate classes, like principles and practices and for licensing schools. I remember that the brokers didn't want, when you would even mention raising the level, you got the greatest resistance from the brokerage community.
Why?
Well, because back in those days, the brokers made a lot of their money on the turnover. And so they didn't want to make it hard for people to get in the business.
How did they make money on the turnover?
People would come to work for them and they'd do 1 or 2 sales and they'd be gone.
Oh, I mean, they make up more.
Oh, they still do it the same way.
Yeah, it's, a lot, and that's why I always kind of want to talk about blowing it up, because it's like the goal of the broker and the goal of the agent are not the same.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. When I was involved in, had the capability to lobby and work in organizations that did that, a lot of the resistance to make it better was from the brokerage community itself.
Of course, because it's a financial decision. Their end goal is they want to make money, and the way they make money is they make more, especially certain brokerages that have caps, or they cap what you pay them. They're going to make money on the people that stay under that cap. So on the people that if your average agent is doing 5 deals or something, that's going to be better than somebody who's above the cap.
Yeah. Now, then another issue is, if you've got people in the business, really have to be careful about trying to keep people out of the business, which it might not look like to people in the business who want to raise the standard, but to people outside the business, it could. And so it's not just a simple, we got to raise the standard, everybody knows we got to do this, and because the perception could be that that's a self-serving position to take.
Okay.
And so, if the premise is the real estate industry, we need to level up the competence of people in real estate, then what's the best way to do it? Well, I don't know. We can make a whole list of things and then say, what's the best way to attack those things and go about making those things happen?
Right.
And
I don't know though if the best way to do it is, and back to the original reason why we're having this, is to have an organization it feels like the primary purpose is to police this trademark for which we actually are members.
That's not its primary. That's just one of its purposes.
Okay, tell us what else, because there's been a lot of chatter in the real estate groups on we're required to be members, but what do they do? So we know RPAC.
And I sent you a document, you can bring it up if you've got it, which kind of covers that. There's a mission statement, the vision statement, and people can go to nar.realtor and they can look at the vision statement. All you got to do is search vision or mission statement.
Okay.
And it'll come up, and it kind of states it and lists the different things, and it's an association. So one of the things people don't understand about associations, when people with a lot of different backgrounds come together for one thing they might have in common, or 2 things they might have in common, or whatever. So I never agreed with all of the things that take place at my local, state, or at the national level. A lot of it doesn't even affect me.
Right.
But I belong because of the other things that do affect me.
And so what is your, when you were practicing it, is this the one you were talking about?
No, that's a very interesting piece, but that's not the one. I just today was you can go to the .realtor site, and it actually lists the mission, the vision, the strategic objectives. And so it's a pretty interesting document. And so if you really, people really want to know how it's very well organized. Real estate is very organized. Right? know how to set this up to create missions and visions and strategic objectives and
Right.
goals from the strategic objectives and tasks and so forth. That's because we have really great professional staff at our association. And Rachel, I don't know who's the staff were. What board are you a member of? And
I'm at Main Street Organization of Realtors out of Downers Grove. Yeah.
Well, it's been a while, but I used to know the people at Main Street always. You got a great staff there. I think you would agree, right?
I absolutely.
Is Ramona still there?
Ramona is still there, yes.
Yeah, say hi to Ramona for me.
Yes, and Kate Sachs is the Director of Professional Standards. She's wonderful. We do have a great staff.
Yeah,
that I will
and
say.
So and they serve the realtors. So at least at the
Yes.
local level, I know that whether people know it or not, they get great benefits from
They
the
don't
local.
know, but isn't that a problem? That seems like that.
They don't know. Yeah, that's the nature of the business, because people are too worried about making a living than they are. And then what happens is only a few people have to carry the load.
Yeah.
Now, this is the way it is often, but that's what happens and the people that do typically are diligent. They're giving their time, they're volunteering their services, their expertise to do the things to make the local association and the state association a national function. And we all can volunteer and participate, but it's time consuming.
Yeah.
And a lot of us just depend on other people to do it.
Do you know the history and the reasoning behind why in more states than not, there's a requirement to be a member of NAR?
Yeah, it has to do with the Thompson and Paulson decisions we might have talked about. So there was this court decision in California. So 2 federal districts. And the one district was California.
Okay.
Big state. And the decision was Paulson. It's hard to spell and I always forget it. I think it's Pollson. I can send it to you. The Paulson decision, like 1978 or something, or 80. Okay. I don't remember the year. And then in Florida, or in another federal jurisdiction, which encompassed Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, the Thompson decision.
Okay.
Those 2 decisions said in those federal jurisdictions, you cannot require realtor membership to belong to the MLS.
Okay.
Because it was reasoned that the MLS was critical to the operation and the ability to do business, and was basically, it was like a cartel and antitrust, so you could not do it. And that was the ruling. And that's how we live here in California. We still have 90% of the, at least I think, of the people who are licensed and practice real estate are members of the realtor organization. Don't have to be, because they could join the MLS directly if they wanted to.
Yeah, but a lot of them, and I guess it would stand to reason, like if the brokerage, like of the brokerages that I belong to, we were required to be a member of NAR in order to be at that brokerage, which I guess now I'm realizing it stands to reason if it's because a member of NAR is held to this like ethics standard that if something happens, now you have to go through these.
Yeah, but let's say I'm not, I'm licensed, but I don't want to join the board of realtors, the Association of Realtors. And I remember when it was a board. I don't want to belong to the Association of Realtors in San Diego, but I want to join the MLS. I can do that. I can join the MLS. Now, if I join and I hire 100 agents, they don't have to join the board.
Yeah, you would have to be a broker. You couldn't join the brokerage that requires you to be a member.
Right. Unless you wanted to become a member.
Unless you wanted to become a member. And in California, like 90% of the people say they want to be a member. So in the States, and I don't know what it is in Florida and Alabama and Georgia, but I would say it's probably close. Mm-hmm. And so people find benefit. And again, the people that make the rules, the people that sit on the committees, the people that go to the meetings, like Rachel, they're realtors.
Yeah.
And so when we say, NAR, the Main Street Association or the Illinois, no, it's like those are the people, and they're doing all that stuff and sitting through all that stuff, and you can change it if you want to. You can participate. And Rachel, you're right. I agree. If I were kind of new to the business, I'd get involved in a grievance committee. I'd want to learn all I could about why.
It's very interesting, right? It's a very interesting position to be in, and you, like I said, you learn a lot every single time you go through a hearing. You learn something new, and there's a lot of things because things change so much, and the nature of the business changes so much because of technology. That, I mean, after I think I'm in year 6 maybe at this point. It's different every time.
Well, plus you meet other people who have the
You do.
same interests that you do, concerns
Right.
about ethics. You talk about those
Absolutely.
kinds of things with them. You wouldn't talk about those kinds of things with other realtors necessarily. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I've got a real pickle of a situation that I'm dealing with a member of the public on now, and yeah, I've contacted somebody that sits on the professional standards committee with me, and just kind of bounce some ideas off of her, and she's been a very a huge help.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very interesting position, and yeah, I encourage anybody who's at that point in their career that they've got enough experience to be able to do it, because every board has different requirements, but to do that even if it's for a term.
yeah, no, I agree. And then and we realize, that a lot of people don't have the time to devote to this.
Mhm.
Right.
And we're very fortunate as an industry that we have people who are members. And this is unusual. This is not like it is in other industries.
Right.
Right.
Where people volunteer their time to participate like this. And I'll
Right,
tell you, there
right.
was a time when the volunteers had incredible amounts of control, that the staff really had to sit back and take a back seat. And that's kind of changed over the years. But there was a time when and then we had to worry about inconsistencies, because you could be spending money to move your organization down one path, and you get a new president for 1 year, decides, boom, I'm going the other way.
Right.
Right. And so the organization's kind of tightened up on that, and that's not as easy to sidetrack your organization as it used to be. But and it's got its flaws. It's not perfect. But I tell you,
Right.
I think I'm an advocate of NAR. I mean, I've been a member for a long time. I believe that it needs to do a better job looking at private property rights. I think it does a great job, but I think private property rights are really under threat, and they're going to continue to be under threat. And I want more diligence on this than I'm seeing. But who else? Who else would I go to?
Right. Exactly.
Who else would a homeowner go to? Right.
But
Right.
isn't there other members of NAR besides licensed real estate agents? Aren't sometimes appraisers members?
Yeah, they have their different categories. But as to who can participate at the directorship level, the rules are different, right? But there are different membership categories. And that was because there was a time you had to be a member to participate in some states, to participate in the MLS. So an appraiser couldn't participate in the MLS, and they had to create categories.
Right.
Yeah, that brings us, Rachel and I talk about too all the time, of having like different categories of real estate agents anyway. You know what I mean? Because there's so many like assistants that are licensed, but they hold the same license that like we hold, but they aren't selling property to the public, but they can. But it's like, is that really?
That's just a role though, right?
Yeah.
That's just a role they've taken. When I first got my broker's license, shortly thereafter, I decided to go to work at a company selling real estate. Now I had a broker's license.
Yeah.
But I decided I'm going to go to work at this company. I'm going to learn how to sell real estate, and I like the fact that I have a broker's license. Matter of fact, on my card is going to say broker. And then when I meet with people that come into the showroom, because that's a showroom, I'm going to say, you want to
trademark?
Pardon?
Broker is a word. It's not a trademark word.
No, it was just a word. But I would, Saul Klein, broker.
Yeah.
Broker associate, right? And so a differentiator. I'd say, I want you to know I'm a broker. Oh, what's the difference between a broker and a salesperson? Well, as a broker, you have to have this qualification. You have to do these things. You have to do that. So I'm a broker. Most of the realtors you'll see are not brokers. But here's my card, right? And so I always use that broker thing as a different, but that was a role. I had a broker's license. I could have opened my own shop, which I did after a couple of years, but I used that, right? Same thing today. Somebody could have a sales license and work as a licensed assistant.
Mm-hmm.
They're licensed to sell, but they just chose a different role for whatever purpose at that particular time. But you're right, you get the license, it's one size fits all. At least that's what, right? So now and it used to really be bad or different. In California, you get your real estate broker's license, you could also do loans. That's how it was. Real estate broker's license, you could do loans. You could do real estate broker's license, you could do loans, you could do just anything. There was no other qualifying test. It was just to get that license. Now, so then the only thing you needed was an if you wanted to do mineral oil and gas, then you needed an endorsement. And that was like a fee, and then your license gets stamped. You could do mineral oil and gas, and that was it, right? So it's come a long way.
Yeah, but you could have been like Saul Klein, your San Diego broker.
Sure, I could have. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I just get like a little bit sideways because like lawyers, like if you're a lawyer or an attorney, you could be like your name and you could be like you're a San Diego lawyer, you're a San Diego attorney, right?
Yeah, I don't know which of those they have trademarked, but I can tell you whichever one is, if it's trademarked, you'd only be able to use it the way they tell you.
Okay. I don't
Right.
think they are. Do you know, Rachel?
I think this is the only industry too where the public at large it doesn't understand how we use it and doesn't understand how we're limited in our use of it.
Right.
You know,
And so that makes me
and then
wonder, like,
there's just a lot of confusion to the consumer. And I've taken special note of these NAR commercials that they're running to, and I'm looking at it going, yeah, that would be if I was out of this business, I would be confused as to what that meant. I asked my husband the other day, I said, what's a realtor? And he gave me a wrong definition. Now I've been doing this for 16 years.
And you know how long that commercial, and I can't remember, there's a name for that program within NAR and we even paid extra for that thing. It's been around over 20 years.
Right.
It's not like and then before we had that program, the biggest, and I was a CAR, California Association of Realtors director, as well as a local president and local director. And the biggest gripe always was, I'm telling you, 1988, the biggest gripe was people don't know the difference between a realtor and a real estate. This was the biggest gripe in 1988.
Right.
My husband doesn't know the difference. We've been married. We've been married way long time, but
what are we going to do to change this? Yeah. How are we going to change it? Right. Then here we are, like 40 years later, 30 years later.
Right. We still haven't figured out how to explain to the public what the difference is between a real estate agent and a realtor. Because the commercials don't.
But you know what? I think a lot of that is the structure of the industry. Because
absolutely. And with this industry, you can't address one little part of the structure without the rest of it blowing up and falling to bits. It's like a game of Jenga. It's the last bit in the game of Jenga. You take that last piece out, that whole thing's falling apart.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's exactly why it's like the perfect time to kind of revisit this stuff, because right now it seems like there's a lot of tiny pieces that if any of them are
well, and here's something else I'll tell you. I believe that the chatter you hear in social media is minute compared to the real numbers. And the reason I believe this is that all people would say to me over the years, they'd say, everybody's talking about this, or everybody's complaining. And my favorite phrase was, how many is everybody?
Right, 3 people that comment.
Right, but that's what people are like, wow.
Let me ask you this. So Saul, my favorite question that you always ask, if using Realtor were possible to use it as it, like that it equaled real estate agent, what would that change? So like your question what is impossible now that if it were possible would fundamentally change the way we do business?
I don't think that would fundamentally change it.
How?
I don't know. I mean, but my opinion off the cuff would be that's not that wouldn't fundamentally change.
I don't either. And so then I'm thinking like, okay, right now when we explored what are some of the trademark rules about this, and we did try to get one of the attorneys on this call too. They didn't answer. So whatever. But like, but the biggest takeaway I learned after kind of researching and watching the videos and things like that was realtor, the trademark word or made up word, is not equal to real estate agent. But the public, as Rachel proved with her husband, the public believes it does. And many agents like myself believed it too, that it was synonymous. So what if it were? Do you think it would fundamentally change the way we did business, Rachel?
I don't know that it would fundamentally change the way we do business, but it would just make it a whole lot easier to explain to the public. It would be a non-issue.
So
as far as education to the public.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's only one piece of the bigger puzzle of residential real estate.
That would then open up a can of worms.
It's just one piece of organized real estate, residential real estate, right? Okay. So it's not, paradigm shifts don't come along every single day, right? So that's why the question is like, if a paradigm shifts, then everyone goes back to zero. So a paradigm shift is a fundamental shift. That doesn't mean that all other shifts and changes aren't important.
Mhm.
Right.
It's just not
It's
fundamental.
just not fundamental,
But
right?
if
It's
we
not,
believe that making the word, that trademark word synonymous with real estate agent would actually, it would not hurt, it would actually make things easier, then what are we paying our dues for them to protect that trademark for?
so if you believe that, if the realtors in the decision-making positions believed that, they could make that change. So, and they would have studies and they would research it. You can bet it would be done with the greatest of diligence.
Yeah.
And if they decided, then they could change it. But so far they haven't decided that that's the best course of action.
I was just trying to trying to figure out what perspective am I not seeing that it hasn't been done. Like, can either one of you think of like a reason, like something negative that would happen?
The only thing I can think of at this point is because you've got 4 states where it's an option to not be a member of NAR, then you can't use that synonymously, because there are going to be people that are real estate agents and not realtors in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and California.
It would be more
If-
confusing, I think, if you did.
Right,
In
right.
those 4 states, but not all the others. I mean,
Well, they're big states. Look at, I mean, think California's got 1/16 or 1/6 of all the realtors in the United States are in California, something like that.
Yeah.
so so you have, then how many, what's the percentage of non-members?
Oh, it's like 8% or something.
Yeah, it's like not that really significant.
No, so that means
Right.
that people find value in the realtor brand, or they wouldn't join.
But the value, but we said though that the value of being a member of NAR is not that the value is not that they like withhold this trademark. The value is the code of ethics. The value is our PAC and protecting our interest, right?
That's, yeah, well, those are the big values. There's all kinds of other values.
So
But
you
yeah,
can, well, there's a lot, but those are like some big ones that we touched on
Those are
during
big
this
ones,
conversation. So like, if that's the value, then if we release the trademark, then would those other 8% become members then? For the
No.
values that really matter to them, maybe? I don't know.
I don't think one way or another, those people that aren't members aren't going to be members.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, they made the decision, I think, based on
So maybe they
economics.
could lose membership if they, I don't know. I guess people aren't really members because of this trademark though either. Just like.
No, it's a piece, but it's not the whole piece.
Yeah. Huh.
Right.
Did we get anywhere in this conversation?
I don't know. But I
We
tell you
learned a
what,
lot.
now here's a little
Other people will learn
sidetrack.
listening to it.
Here's a little aside, and
Yeah.
that is, whether we like it or not, NAR, it owns the top level domain .realtor.
Okay.
Right.
It also owns the top level domain .real estate.
Okay.
Now, people, and there are now over like 1,200 new top level domains over the last 5 years. Like, there's like a lot of them, because
Yeah.
that's what the way that the people who designed the internet kind of think that this is going to go, the addressing ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. So NAR had the right, because it has a trademark,
Right.
it had the right to be the first one to get .realtor.
Right. Because
If
it's
it
their
did-
word. It's a made up word that they
It's their word, so they got .realtor. But because they got .realtor, they were also able to get .real estate.
Okay.
Okay, so they got .realtor, .real estate. People say, well, what are they going to do? Nobody's ever going to use those domains. That's ridiculous. Why would you waste that money? No one's ever going to use those domains. Here we got these domains. Nobody ever's going. I use Saul at Better Call Saul.realtor, but that's a side story.
Right.
Nobody's ever going to use those domains, and so why do they do that? Now imagine, and they might be right,
Mhm.
but imagine if NAR hadn't got .real estate.
Right.
Imagine what the members would have said if
Yeah.
NAR let Zillow
Right. I was gonna say if a
get
technology
.real
company
estate,
bought it.
Right.
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
we just don't know all the stuff that goes on and how there's a lot of stuff. And
Right. There's a
and
lot
I-
of higher level stuff that doesn't affect us on an everyday basis that they're doing.
Right.
yeah, no, exactly, right. It's well staffed, it's well run. I know the people personally. They're old friends, and they've been there for years and years, and they know realtors, and they care about realtors, and
Right.
and they care about the job that they do. So they want to hear from you, they hear from realtors all the time, and like the same thing, right? We were saying the same thing back in 1988 about people don't know the difference between. It's the
Right.
same.
People don't know.
Yeah, it's just some
And
things never.
we're not real sure that it matters. But it
Out of
does
what?
matter to the members of those of us that get in trouble for using it incorrectly.
Just depends on how we use the word.
Right, it matters to us.
Right.
Yeah, because like, you know, for the podcast, it was Realtor Fight Club, a podcast for realtors. And they're saying that you can't use it because it's not allowed to be used for education.
Is synonymous with a real estate. Well, is synonymous with real estate agent.
Yeah, except that it does say
Right.
a podcast for realtors, which would denote a podcast for members.
Right. And they're saying that you have people that are listening that are not necessarily members of NAR.
They're saying that you can't use realtor. I don't think that's what they were saying. Maybe
They were saying that you can't use it as synonymous in a situation where you're using it synonymously with as a real estate agent. So you can't replace.
and when you're educating. So like
Right.
no educational class can be like called that or whatever.
Right.
How I
Right.
understand it. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. That's interesting. Okay. So my takeaways
Yes.
from here are, if you don't like something, get involved at the
Absolutely.
local and state level. Yes.
Yes. Your local board and your grievance committee and your professional standards committee are great places to
And
start.
I would say I've met some of the very best people in the real estate industry through volunteering.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's probably true of anything. Now, when you go
Yeah.
Right.
volunteer, you meet good people.
Yeah,
Well, because you meet people with similar interests and you meet people that care about things the way you care about things,
exactly.
you know.
That's awesome.
Right.
Do we have any other takeaways from today that we hope people learn? And
We just have to keep educating the public, Jen.
okay.
We keep trying. We're going to keep trying.
Yeah, Rachel, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they have a referral for Chicago or they have a question for you specifically, what's the best way?
Best way to reach me is on my cell at 630-542-8688 or via email or Facebook at rachaelreal@gmail.com
Beautiful.
or facebook.com/RachelRealEstate.
Not Rachel Realtor.
No, not Rachael Realtor. God forbid you use that. Do not use that.
Saul, if somebody had a question for you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Saul at bettercallsaul.realtor.
Love
That's
it.
the best email
Not
address
Realtor.
too. I love it.
It's the best. Well, thanks a lot for
Yes.
being on, guys. I really appreciate it. I think
Thanks
it's
for
really
having
nice
us.
to be having this conversation and get people to really think about what we're doing here.
It's just nice that when you're put in a situation where you are presented with your invoice once a year and they say, here, you have to pay this, this, and this. At a minimum, ask, why are you doing it and who are you paying and what does this mean?
Exactly.
That's kind of what I wanted to know.
I love it. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Hey,
Bye.
good to
Thank
see
you.
man. Take care.